Chris from Tiny Industrial, and we're gonna take these 4 8-foot long 2x12s and turn them into 2 awesome planters. Stick around, they're gonna look like this. If you wanna know how to build that, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it. Now, first, right out of the gate, props to Derek Diedrichsen, who showed me this idea. Link to his video in the description below. I'm gonna make a smaller version. So what kind of tools do you need for this? Well, you need a saw. I'm gonna be using a miter saw, which is unnecessary for this. You can use any kind of saw, circular saw, hand saw. Use one of these suckers right here. And then you're gonna want something to drive some screws with. We're gonna be using some star head screws, either an impact or a drill or anything of that sort. We really need a really minimum amount of tools for this particular project. Let's get started. What we're gonna do is take 3 of these boards and cut them right down the middle, which will create 6 4-foot long sections. And those are gonna be the sides and the bottom. So for each planter, you're gonna need 2 sides and a bottom, right? Each is gonna be 4 feet long. So we're gonna create 6 of those. Man, it's cold today. Okay, here we go. We got 48 inches is right there. So this is board number 1, and we're gonna cut 2 more like this. Any way you see fit to cut through this board is fair game. That's 2 of them right there. Let's cut 2 more. So we got our 6 pieces cut out, and let me show you what we're gonna do with those. We've got 3 of the sections here for our first planter. We got 2 sides and a bottom. Now the way that I've set this up is, as you can see, we've got the bottom board is in between the other 2. You can add the sides to the top. And what that does is create a narrower, taller planter. So it's like you squeeze this way, but you come up in height. I don't like that particular variant. We're gonna do it this way and make a wider planter. And then all that remains to be done is to create an end cap. So that's what we have this, this 4th 2x12 for. That's gonna provide end caps and some things for the bottom. A 2x12 is not actually 12 inches. If you measure it, you'll see that it's 11.5 inches. And you've got 1.5 on either side. So 1.5 and 1.5 is 3, and 11.5 is equal to 14.5. So when we cut what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut a 14.5 inch piece out of this remaining 2x12, and that'll be end cover number 1. We're gonna cut another 14.5 inch piece, end cover number 2. We're gonna do the same exact thing with the remaining 3 pieces that are lying on the ground over there. So that's the next step. Incidentally, if you're new to my channel, I'm here at my tiny house. I have a tiny house, I have a motor home. I'm all about like kind of simplifying my life, and that's what this channel is dedicated to. If that appeals to you, check out my other videos. So let's get back to making these planters. All right, so let's get some of these 14.5 inch sections going. There's our 14.5, and that should fit. Fits perfectly. All right, so there we go. With just a few simple cuts, we've created this box. Now we're just gonna put the whole thing together with a bunch of star screws. You wanna use exterior grade because anything less, especially in this pressure treated wood, is going to lead to premature problems. You know, if we're gonna go through the trouble of making this, it should last for a while. We're gonna screw this all together, and that'll be our first box. And then we're gonna do the second one in exactly the same fashion. So let's get the equipment we need for that. Okay, here we go. I got my impact driver, and I'm using these 3-inch star drive screws, like so. I probably want a 3.5, but I just happen to have a ton of these 3-inch ones. It's plenty sufficient. What you want to do is obviously get through the first board and into the bottom board there. And I think we're doing that with sufficient amount of room to spare. So we're gonna just send like, I don't know, 7 or 8 of these through the bottom here. You want those screws to go in about a, you know, 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom. That way you're gonna hit the bottom of the planter box board pretty much directly in the middle. Now we're just gonna do the same thing on the other side. Make sure, you know, everything lines up front here so that you don't create an artificial gap right there. Okay, moving on to the ends. In terms of safety equipment, you should definitely wear eye protection when using a saw, like I did not. And when working with pressure treated wood, please wear gloves, because there is nothing like getting a pressure treated splinter in your hand. It will preoccupy you for the remainder of the day. All right, so as we have just discovered, the top here is not the same as the bottom. Now you don't have to do this step. So we're gonna crank the clamp onto this and bring it in alignment with the bottom. So this clamp is just squeezing the top together just a hair more. So at this point it's more squared up and more alignment. Again, it's an extra step. I get a little crazy about this stuff. All right, finally, I'm reasonably happy with that. That's one end on. Just spin this thing around. Now, even a 4-foot planter box like this is going to be considerably heavy. Once there's dirt in it, forget about it. All right, we're gonna do something similar on this end. I'm gonna squeeze this end down a bit too, because it is flaring at the top a little. Sun's coming out, yay! There's our first planter box. This is not some flimsy thing you buy at Pier 1. No offense to Pier 1, but this is a solid planter box right here. What I'm gonna do is put some feet on this thing. By the way, I've just decided to cut this video into 2 parts. Part 1 is just going to be straight up creating the planter. Part 2 is going to be adding some embellishments to the planter to make it a better planter. So we're going to be doing that in part 2, which will immediately follow this particular video. When you have this box, if you just put it down on the ground, then you have this whole thing sitting in the dirt. I don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take another piece of pressure treated 2x4. And we're just gonna cut a section like this, maybe lop off the ends a little bit, make it a little bit more decorative, just to give this thing some feet so it doesn't sit right on the ground. What that'll do is allow airflow underneath, it'll allow it to dry and so forth, and that will be the sort of finishing touch on these. And then we'll consider part 1 done. Now I've only created 1 box so far. Then what we'll do is when we have the 2 boxes fully set up, we're going to embellish them a little bit and make it prettier. There's the width of that right there. And then we're gonna do one over here as well. So let's cut those pieces. Where are my gloves? I don't want a splinter, not at this point. I've come this far. All right, here we go. There's those 2 things, and like I said, I'm gonna lop the corners off of these. All right, I went with a 22.5-degree cut. Why? For no apparent reason. So now all we're gonna do is we're gonna measure in, I don't know, 10 inches or something. I'm gonna do the same thing on this other side, and then we're gonna run a screw into either side here to lock it in place. Probably one from the side as well for stability's sake. And then we will celebrate. Here we go. Whatever that distance winds up being, we'll mimic it on the other side. Well, let's be a little bit more professional. We'll call it 6 inches in. We'll just mark it like that. Same thing over here. Come at it from all sides here. That's it. There it is. There's our planter. Look at that. Nice. I'm happy with that. That looks good, right? You got a solid planter. And that's it. That's your basic planter. Now, as promised, this is just the beginning. I'm not gonna end there. Well, this video is gonna end there. But what I'm gonna do next is build another one of these, not on camera. And then we're gonna make these things look friggin' amazing with just a little bit of extra love. So if you enjoyed part 1, hit the like button. If you enjoyed it enough to watch part 2, you should go watch part 2 because that's coming up next.
No.